Hi everyone, I'm Hamdullah and you're watching Trendsetters Academy. So today in this lecture I will tell you how we use Android SQLite database. So the first thing is that what really SQLite database is and how it is different from other databases and why we really need SQLite database. So in my experience, for Android users, the best thing for simple database creation is basically the SQLite database. So SQLite database is really important for Android users. That it's like Android creates for itself for using an SQLite database. Like if you are using some sort of PHP MyAdmin database or some others MongoDB database or whatever, so you have to include an external API in the database external API in Android. So here in SQLite you don't need any external API. Okay, so how we use this Android SQLite, we will see. I will tell you with simple steps, and I am sure about this thing that you will enjoy and you will do really easy. And so let's start a lecture. So here the thing is, so here are few steps. At first you will see ingredients are written here. Okay, so these are some ingredients here. As when your ingredients are there and when they combine the whole ingredients and mix all the things in different steps, then in last an awesome dish is created. The same thing is here. So the first thing is there must be a cursor, there is some class, we are using SQLite open helper class, and there must be a database, as you know. And you know, in simple database there must be some database name, there must be a database, a single database have a single table, as it's really on the basic level. So this database is only one row and one column. So this means what really necessary and important things are the database name or a table name, which is named, I mentioned it as a context table name. And the first is context column ID, the second is context column name, and there must be some loops and queries are used in this code. Okay, so what really the steps are here? Okay. So the first step is, if you are following my previous lectures, so I told you about the activities. So there must be an activity. Okay, there must be an activity. So this means what really activity here, what I am doing is, here is my list activity where I am showing a list of some few things which are coming from database, and there is some another activity from where you can add data, and I called it as an insertion activity. And the third thing is I created some classes for database, like database query classes, which usually why I created, it's like if I'm creating the class and I'm just creating an object and just calling or passing some query or some string, so I don't need that to create a class in okay. So the first thing I created list activity, insertion activity, and a database class. Okay, database class is totally I created into some separated. I created database class in a separated folder. Okay, so in this database class, what really happened is there I created some queries, some queries and a class. I will mention it later how this thing is working. In database class where you create a query and execute it. Simple. It's not a rocket science here. The third thing is you are creating a list view activity, as I mentioned before, and inserting the data in insertion activity. The fourth thing is you are creating a cursor to add data and read the data. And in last you have to run the code by combining all four steps. So why really we need a cursor? You can get example cursor from your this mouse, this cursor, that it's just like pointing a thing. Like if you want to point something, what you do is you just put cursor there and just point a pixel. Okay, just point a thing, just forget about this thing. Like you are pointing on the file, like I am pointing here on the edit, I am pointing here on format, view, help, on the taskbar, on border. So just take the example from this thing, that this is a cursor, and the same thing using here. Like what I am doing is I am just using this cursor to point on a thing, to point on a data, whatever I want to insert, on add, on update or delete, whatever I want to do, I can do this with the help of a cursor. So these are the 4 steps. You have to remember these 4 steps, 4 or 5 steps, okay, and just remember these ingredients what we are using here. And now I'm going in code and I will show there. Just be relaxed, and if you have any issue, just contact me and just comment there. Let's see how these things are working. Okay, so I have a resource file here, and there is a layout. In layout, what I'm doing is I'm just displaying contacts here, and this is the main. Let's see what it's doing. This, like you are seeing here, here is button, text view. See here, there is a relative layout here. Okay, I put a scroller view, a relative layout, and edit text here. You are seeing this, I'm sure about this thing. And in this relative layout, what I'm going to do is I'm just putting another edit text for just adding the data. Just wait for a while, the thing is loading. And there is a button which is for just save the contacts, so I'm saving contacts on button click. Okay, so here the other things are whatever, the email, the phone number, street address, whatever, blah blah, and other things. Nothing else, no issue about this thing. You can create this thing. They're really easy. Whatever you want to add data, what sort of data you want to add, it's up to you. So now what we will do is we will see the activity main. So in activity main, you are seeing this is just a list view is showing here. Okay, simple list view. So in display context, I hope this is okay, so it's clear now. So what it's showing is the name, the phone, the street, the email, city, and it's just, you can click on the save contact button and the thing is saved. So now let's go in DB helper class and we will see how we create our database. So just remember your steps, your mind must be cleared. So the first thing here is we are using a DB SQLite open helper class. So this means what? This means that database, whatever class you want to create for the database, no issue with that, and you have to extend this database class with SQLite open helper because you are using SQLite database. So whatever the classes override from here are as known as simple thing is it's for the SQLite database classes. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we created some strings here. The first thing is database name. Okay, my database name, I just simply mentioned my DB name .db. Okay, fine with that. And there is a contact table name, contacts. Okay, so this thing is whatever you want to mention here. The simple thing is you can create your columns name here. Okay, and whenever you want to use it, you can use it directly. So I put these columns as static and final, like it's constant, it's never changed here. Okay, so this is the thing. Okay, so let's go on the next step. You will see here that I'm using a DB helper constructor. Okay, so just remember this thing, like it's just accepting a context from some class wherever I'm calling this DB helper. So what it's going to do is there is some database name here and some factory null and version, what really the version is. So no issue with this. The important thing is this context, because I'm using this context to show the data on the screen, so it's important. Okay, So let's go in the next what really the things are here. Okay, so the next thing here is this thing. This is quite so important thing. This is like what you are really creating is on create method. It's quite overriding. Okay, if you just comment it, it will show an error here. So right now what you are doing is SQLite database is coming from this class, whatever you are. So you are seeing this method. Okay, this method is really important here. Like it's just like you say when you're creating an activity, when you're creating any sort of activity, what it do is it's just show on the screen. Okay, and what it do is it's the overrided, the first method is on create method. So the same things happening here. Okay, so don't, so on create here is like you are creating a database. So at first when you're creating a database, there must be a table. Like the database is like tables, full of tables. Okay, so here what we do is database.execute SQL. So here is the query, like you are writing a query. Here is what really the query is, like you want to create a contact table here, and what other things are what are the things are, like the first thing is ID, and it must be a primary key, and second thing is name, the third column is phone, the fourth column is email, the fifth column is street, the sixth column is place. Whatever the text are, it might be a text, it might be like digits or whatever varchar and blah blah thing. These other things are like of database. Okay, so don't worry about this thing. Let's see what the other things are here. It's not so long and heavy sort of project. It's just 50 lines of code, 50 to 80 lines of code. So don't get nervous about this thing. Okay, just clear your mind and just go on. Okay, the third method, it just override from my SQLite class. So no issue with this. If I just comment it, let me comment this thing. Okay, if I comment this method, okay, if I comment it, so you will see here, okay, here is an error. And what really the error is, are you seeing this error? So really wait this thing. So are you seeing this error? I'm sure about this thing. You are seeing this error, like class db helper must ideally be declared abstract or implement abstract method. So this means that this class is not accepting this means there is some method which is really absent here. So there must be a method. Let's see what it's do. If I click on this button, what it do is it just implement this thing. Okay, it just implement this thing. Okay, so just uncomment it and the error will be cleared. So don't be so like I have to learn these things, I must remember these things. Just remember, what you must remember is that your class must be extended with the SQLite open helper, as I mentioned in first step. Just remember this thing, that your class must be extended with this. Okay, and as you are using SQLite, then this is simple, that okay, I am using SQLite open helper. Okay, I am using SQLite database, then there must be and my database must be extended from SQLite open helper. So here the connection, so this class basically coming from Android. The Android created itself this class for us, for programmers. Okay, so now let's go towards the next thing. What really the next thing is, okay, on upgrade, why really I need this upgrade method. So in upgrade is like if you are continuously running your project, like you are testing your project. So what you do is, at first your project is created and the database is created, and now your phone has its database. So now when you are running again your project, what it do, it just run this thing. Then what you do is, if there if that table exists, if the contact table exists in the memory of the database, oh sorry, in the memory of a cell phone, so what it do is it drop the table. So now what we are going to do is we are creating some methods. So it's like I am performing a CRUD operation. Okay, so I am creating a data, I am updating a data, I am deleting a data, and I am inserting a data. So this is the basic major block of database. I'm sure about this thing. So the first thing is I want to insert data in database. So I created an insertion contact method. Like this method is basically for whatever the data I am getting, I have to insert this data in my database. So don't worry about this thing, whatever the data came from, where it came, just ignore this thing. So what I do is I just get class sqlite database. Okay, it's coming from where? It's coming from here, sqlite database class. Okay, it's sqlite database and Android. So this means Android, this class is coming from Android in simple words. Okay, so what you're doing is I'm just getting its method writable database. So right now what I'm going to do is I have to get this method, get writable database, and now in my DB I have to add the data, whatever the data is. So I just create a content value here, and what really the content value is, content value has a lot of methods here. I just press control with space and you'll see here there are a lot of methods. What you really want to do with your database, you want to clear your database has any sort of key really. Okay, show me your contents. Your database might equal with something, you want to get some string, you want to get some boolean and blah blah, a lot of things, a lot of methods are here. So this really put method, you are seeing here put method, put all and remove. So I'm using here a put method. What really put method is doing, put method is just inserting the data. So this is the name of my column, so the name of my column is name. Okay, and what I'm doing is I'm just getting data from this method. Okay, whatever wherever I call this insert contact, I just passed the name there and the name is received here. I'm just pasting it here. Okay, it's not some sort of any sort of some logical thing, it's simply common sense type stuff. Okay, so the last thing here is what I'm doing is I'm inserting the data. So are you seeing here, like I'm not writing any sort of query here, I'm just calling db.insert. Okay, so this db has a lot of methods here. Like you want to delete, you can call it delete. You want to delete database, you can call delete database. Okay, you want to what really you want to do, you want to insert. Okay, go on insert. So what you want to create I already done create the thing, I create a table here. Okay, so in CRUD operations what really the things are create, update, read and delete. So here in comments I'm mentioning here CRUD operations. Okay, what really they are: create, read, update, delete. So I done create method, like I created, what I created is I created the table before, so I mentioned it again. So what I do is I create a table. Okay, like same thing is you can create any sort of table, whatever you want to do. Okay, second thing what I am going to do here is okay, what I'm going to do here is there's some issue here. Okay, just press Ctrl Z and the issue resolve. Okay, the second thing is it's read the operation. Okay, so you want to select, you want to read the data. The first thing you have to read it. Okay, and update and delete it. So insertion is complete. Yeah, the CRUD value. So fine. So this is the insert method. You can include value. So you are inserting the data here, and simply you don't need any sort of query here. Okay, things are clear and fine. So here is our cursor. Okay, so what it really doing here is, so cursor wants to get the data from the ID. So I'm just sending an ID. Okay, so as I mentioned before, that what really is doing, you are just pointing a thing. So whatever I'm pointing, there must be an ID. So SQLite database right now what it's doing is it just get readable database. So what I do in insertion, I just get writable database. Here the thing is, I'm just for insertion I'm just getting get writable database, and here is get readable database. So the cursor here is what doing a db.raw query and just inserting a query here, and what it's writing a query here, it's like put a select query. Simply it is selecting the whole data from the database where the IDs matches. It just put the database here, it just show us the results, and it's returning the results. Where I call this cursor method get data, it just show me all the results there. So this means I must call it in my list view. So let's see others, what really other methods are. So right now here your database is complete. Okay, but there are some other methods here, and I will tell you these methods. Okay, so on this cursor point, your database is complete, but there are some other things what really other mentioned. These are some optional things that you really want to do, like you want to read the number of rows, what really number of rows in my whole database in my tables are. So how you do is you have to read the database. The simple thing is the same thing as I mentioned before, that SQLite database. Okay, you are importing the SQLite database and you are getting get readable database. In my insertion, what I do is I get writable database, and here I get a readable database. And what I do next is database utils dot query number entries. So this is the method that just getting data number of rows in your database. So this is simple thing, it's just returning a data in some integer type. Okay, so its return type is int. So the next thing here is update context. So now I am doing is update context, the same thing as I done in the previous methods, like insertion. What I do is get writable database. Simple, I want to write the data, but the other thing is, whatever you want to write the data, you at first what you really want to update, there must be an ID. So what you are going to do here is, there is a content value, the same thing as I told you before, content value. I think I don't need to explain it again. So here what you are doing is you just doing update your context. Okay, update, and here is the table name, context, and content value. These are all the values. So here is ID. What really your ID is, you have to mention your ID. Okay, what really ID is. So my ID is in strings. Okay, fine with that. Okay, go on. And this is my ID. I'm just setting the ID here. You are seeing this? Are you seeing this? So here is the ID. I'm just passing this data here, and I'm just telling it that this is the ID, you have to edit it. Okay, I hope this thing is fine. So for deleting context, I'm sure you can do this thing. I'm sure for deleting context, what you really do is you can do this method. Either do this like db.delete and just put the name context and just go on with this thing, or like a select query that I mentioned before. Like you can do this thing. These are the two different methods. Like you can use your cursor for delete, or you can use a simple content values and just push the data, or whatever you want to do, like SQLite database stuff, or you want to do with the cursor stuff. It's up to you, whatever you want to do. Okay, so the delete method is complete. like you are putting a cause, so I want to delete this thing. Okay, go on, just delete it. The second thing, the last thing here mentioned is, here is the array list. Okay, so my whole data is mentioned in an array list. So the last thing here is the array list. So what I'm doing here is, are you seeing here? So what I'm going to do here is, this is my array list and I have to get all the contacts here. Okay, I have to get all contacts here in array list, and what it do is, it just returned me every contact, whatever, every data mentioned in my database. Whatever the data is present in my database, it just returned me the data and showed me on the screen. So I have to call this method for showing the data. So you are seeing here is what it is doing the same thing as shown. I told before, that is a db.raw query select.static from contacts. Okay, fine with that, and then result.move to first. It's like arranging the data, and descending order might be ascending or descending. Don't get confused with this thing. You can use this method either or main order. It's no issue with this thing. Okay, if you want to use result or if I commented, there's no issue with this thing. Okay, if I commented and if I uncommented, no issue with this thing. Okay, the second thing is, you have to use the loop. As I told you, you have to use the loop. So the loop is using here. Okay, like result dot is after last agar. If this is false, then what really happened is, you have to add the another content. This means that you have to add data in last. The data must be added at last of the thing. Okay, and if I use result dot move to first, what it do is, it must be added at the first step. Okay, so these are the things. It's just returning me in an array form. So I hope this thing is clear. This is whole about your database. So now your database is created. So what I'm going to do is, I have to call these methods. And in sequence, in a way, so things are quite clear. So there must be no issue. Okay, fine with this thing. I hope things are clear. So now let's go in our display data and we will see there how things are working. Okay, so I have to call these methods, nothing else. No issue with the things other. I have to call these methods. So let's see how these methods are working. Okay, let's see how things are working. So here are you seeing this thing? This is display content. This means like you are adding the data here. Okay, if you want to add the data, or if you want to edit your data, this means you want to update your data, this activity must be open. So this is display contact is basically an activity. So there is I created a variable for db helper class. Okay, wherever I want to use the data, where I want to use the methods of db helper, I just created here. Okay, so let's see how thing is working. So how I'm using the insertion method here. I created text views. Okay, I created a name, phone number, places from my XML file, and there is my db helper class, and called it my db. And are you seeing this thing? Context this. As I told you before, that from where I am getting this data, I'm just getting this data here. Here is the content. So basically the thing is, like, both my activities need this database, so I have to pass the context of both activities. So I just pass this context. Okay, I just pass this activity, my display contact activity. I pass this context here, and what it do is, next is it just add its values. And now what? So now what the thing is, It's really simple. There's no issue with this thing. It's just getting a cursor, db get value, my database, and just remember this thing. This is your db helper. So are you seeing this thing? Are you seeing this thing? Cursor. I have a cursor here. What really cursor is doing? It's just getting its data here, and I just put some values here. I just passed the data here. Okay, and rs move to first, like it's just moving the first data. Okay, awesome. That's really awesome. So what really these things are? Okay, are you seeing here? rs dot get string. Okay, get columns index and db helper. Simply, it's not a rocket science. Okay, just fine with this thing. Like cursor is getting its data. From where? From helper class, db helper class, when context name. These are the column names here. Okay, and it just passed that data where? In name, phone, email, street, and places. So now the database columns names, I have all these names here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I have to set those data where? In my fields, name dot set text name, phone dot set text phone. So why I'm doing this thing? Like I have to do this thing? Yeah, really. When you really want to update your data, then you have to do this. Like you are updating your data, like when you are clicking on a text, what it do is it just update, it just go in your text, like on this screen, and it just update your data. Simply, whatever you want to change your data, whatever you want to do with your thing. Okay, fine with this thing. I hope this thing is fine, and you are seeing this method. There's no use of this thing. You can use this or you may not use. There's no issue with this thing. If I just comment it, there's no issue with this thing. It's like rs is closed. Really, rs, if the cursor is closed, okay, if the cursor is closed, then use this. If the cursor is not closed, then close it simply. And if the cursor is closed, then this means you are using this thing. Okay, so here is my menu. Like I'm creating my menu and I'm just adding the data here. Like in my menu, when I click on a menu button, what it do is it just gets that data, it just adds a new data. Okay, it's just showing me another activity. So here is a delete contact. So why really I need a delete contact? So delete contact is basically like when you click on whatever, on a row, whatever contact you want to delete, just click on it. Simply I just used just clicked on it, and it just asks you a question. Are you really want to delete your contact? Yeah. If you click on yes, I really want to delete. Then delete contact with an ID. Okay, whatever the ID is, and it's deleted successfully, and it just go through towards your main activity. Okay, and now my database things are clear, and here is my update method, that how really my update method is working. So let's see, there's some run method. So when I click on a button, like I want to click on the button, as I mentioned here, is when I want to save my data, I have to click on button. What it do is, here is the button. Okay, when I click on this button, it just run this method, on click method. On click, there is a run method in my Java class. So here is the run method that I'm showing. So when I click on save button, what it do is it just creates some bundles of files, and what it do is it just some get ID, like the data is there, and it's just adding the whole data in database. Are you seeing this thing? mydb.update contacts. And so here is the view method. What it really doing is, okay, so when I click on run button, like when I click on save button, what it do is it's run this method and it just creates some bundles, and what it do is it just call this method update contacts method. So what it's doing, it's just passing all the data there and it's show me our data that okay fine, data is updated, and just pushed me towards my main activity. Okay, and if the data is not updated, it show me okay, data is not updated. The same thing happening here. Are you seeing? I'm sure this thing is fine. Like the same thing happening here. You are just inserting the data. Okay, now what you really want to do is you want to insert the data. This you have to pass the data there, and what I'm going to do is I just pass the data name, I just pass the data phone, and in text forms, in string forms. Okay, and it's last what to do is just show me are done if the data is fine passing, and if the data is not fine passing, then it show me false, and last it get me pushed me towards the main activity. So what really in my main activity is, what really in my main activity is, this main activity is showing me the a list of data. So I just call it object, and the same thing, the DB helper database must be important here. Okay, and here the same thing, the same sequence I'm following, like it's just passing a context, same context, the context of this activity, and there's an array list, like you have to show the data in list form. Okay, so I created an array list, and array list is getting all the context from database, and there is a method of get all contexts, and there is an array adapter. What an array adapter is doing, it's just creating a list view. If you go on my list view lecture, I'm sure this thing is quite clear, so clear about this thing. I in my previous lecture I defined this thing in really deep way. Okay, I defined this thing in really depth. Okay, if you find the list view in my previous lectures, recycler view or list view, you'll find there. This is really awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm just saying that okay, the data is here the data is fine, and I'm saying if I want to click on a data, it must be an ID, there must be an update or whatever it is doing. So here the thing is, it's just getting its ID, when I click on an item, it gets an adapter view and it is creating some ID, and here is the ID is what it passed in the search ID to search, and it's just again getting some data bundle, and it just put the ID there. And what it doing when I receive this ID, so this ID is passed is the same like an intent, but in bundle formation. Bundles, you can say there is some list of bundles of book. The common example is the bundle of books. So bundle of books, what it really means, it's not like a single book, it's like multiple books, it's like more than 2 books or more than 3 books. So this means like bundle must be more than 2 or more than 1, you can say. Okay, so basically bundles we can use for this. Then I use the intent method and I just display the context there, and I just put an extra data whatever the thing is and just start the activity. So here a menu is created simply, and another menu is here, like you want to accept that data but really it's coming. So what it do is when you click on the item that I really want to add an item, I just put an ID there. Okay, and it's just show the display context and the thing is finished there. Okay, I hope things are clear. So now what it's really doing is, here is my activity, here's my menu, which is using add new, and where I just add the data and just type the data there. It just go there. Okay, it just came here, and I just add the data, and when I want to save the context, then I move on this, and the whole activity shows here, the whole list displays here. That's all about the SQLite database. I hope this thing is fine. If there is any issue, just contact me, message me, email me. My email mentioned there, my contact is mentioned there. If you like this lecture, please click on like button and subscribe for new videos, for new lectures, and some motivational speeches and some motivational things. I'm sure about this thing. Thank you. Have a nice day, and have nice coding. Bye. Bye bye.